Most employees believe the workplace runs on fairness. They believe if something goes wrong, HR will help, management will explain, and the system will correct itself. I believed that too, until I watched step by step what actually happens when a worker enters the system after an injury or workplace conflict. Hi, I'm Imani, your AI career coach. I help you rise above the noise, stand out above the rest, and thrive in the AI era. Workplace Intelligence Trademark is a weekly series exposing how workplace systems actually function, beyond what employees are typically told. This is where employees become informed, prepared, and powerful. Because the system was built without you in mind. But that doesn't mean you can't win inside of it. This video series pulls back the curtain on the systems that govern your livelihood and arms you with the knowledge they never gave you. Over the past several months, I've been sitting side by side with someone navigating a workplace injury and workers' compensation process, and another employee who was wrongfully terminated in real time. Not as an attorney, not as HR, but as a researcher, an observer, an assistant, and someone determined to understand how the system actually works and actually experienced it while helping an employee who didn't know where to begin. What we discovered changed how I see the workplace entirely. At first, what I discovered felt like corruption. It felt unfair. It felt dismissive. It felt like the truth didn't matter. But the deeper I researched, the more I realized it wasn't corruption. It was the structure. It was systems. And learning how to navigate systems, especially legal and financial systems, changes everything. Because workers' compensation, mediation, HR investigations, legal negotiations, wrongful termination, they are not designed around moral judgment. They are designed around risk management. Numbers move. Language changes. Stories get reframed. And employees, often injured, emotional, or overwhelmed, are expected to make permanent legal decisions while understanding the system the least. Here's the part nobody says out loud. Most workers don't lose leverage because they lack intelligence or knowledge. They lose leverage because they don't know what questions to ask. They're not aware that forms exist. They can file themselves. They don't know that timelines quietly determine outcomes. They don't know that different areas of law operate in completely different universes. By the time they learn, decisions have already been made. And it doesn't stop at workplace injuries. What about the employee who was let go, suddenly, without warning, and told it was a business decision or wasn't given an explanation at all? What about the worker who raised a concern and 2 weeks later found themselves on a performance improvement plan or fired? What about the person who was passed over for promotion, again, while less qualified colleagues moved up? What about the employee who reported harassment and then quietly became invisible? What about the employee who was assaulted on the job, documented everything, expected the system to respond in her favor, and instead was sent home, left in silence, then handed a resignation to sign during workers' comp mediation, while the company threatened to withdraw the settlement if she didn't agree to a global release? Whew, that last scenario was loaded, right? These aren't rare stories. These are patterns. And they all share one thing in common. The employee didn't know what was actually happening until it was too late to respond effectively. For example, wrongful termination is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the workplace. Most people think it means being fired unfairly. But legally, it means something very specific. It means being terminated for reasons the law prohibits, like retaliation, discrimination, or whistleblowing. And here's what surprises most people. In many states, employers can fire you for almost any reason, or no reason at all. It's called at-will employment, but that doesn't mean every termination is legal, and it doesn't mean you have no options. It means you need to know the difference. Before you sign anything, before you accept the severance package, and before you walk away, assuming you had no rights. Some severance agreements contain clauses that waive your right to file a claim. Some separation letters are worded to protect the company, not you. And some exit conversations are designed to gather information that works against your interests later. That's not paranoia. That's how the system was built. We're also going to talk about workplace retaliation because it rarely looks the way people expect it to. Most employees imagine retaliation as something obvious, a sudden firing, a dramatic confrontation. But real retaliation is quieter than that. It looks like a schedule change, a shift in your manager's tone, being left off emails, suddenly receiving write-ups for things that were overlooked before. And understanding that one distinction will fundamentally change how you communicate, what you document, and how you protect yourself in any workplace investigation. We're going to talk about workplace discrimination, including the subtle, systemic kind that rarely leaves a paper trail but shapes careers every single day. Bias in performance reviews, bias in promotion decisions, bias in who gets assigned high-visibility projects, and bias in who gets quietly managed out instead of supported through challenges. We're going to talk about mediation, what it actually evaluates, what leverage really means inside that room, and why preparation matters more than emotion when you're sitting at that table. We're going to talk about wage theft, which affects millions of workers every year and often goes unreported because employees don't know it has a name, let alone a legal remedy. Unpaid overtime, misclassification, off-the-cloth work expectations. These aren't just workplace frustrations. In many cases, they are violations. And we're going to talk about what happens after the injury, after the termination, after the investigation closes. Because rebuilding your career, your confidence, and your understanding of your own value is part of this journey too. This series will cover so many more work-related issues, so you'll want to subscribe. And if you like this introduction, hit the like button. This series exists because workplace education was never taught to us. Not in school, not at work, not before we needed it most. Over the past months, I researched statutes, reviewed processes, used AI tools responsibly, and verified information step by step. And what shocked me most wasn't the system. It was how little ordinary workers are told about how it works. So this is not legal advice. This is education. In this series, we're going to cover how workplace systems actually function, how to protect your leverage, what your rights look like in plain language, what HR's role truly is, what retaliation patterns actually look like, and what you should understand before signing anything or walking away from anything. We'll also examine how workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion, often called DEI, functions as part of organizational systems, including how policies are created, why they change over time, and what those shifts mean for employees navigating today's workplace. Because too many people have left money on the table. Too many people have signed away rights they didn't know they had. Too many people have stayed silent because they didn't know speaking up was even an option, or they feared losing their jobs. And eventually, we're going to talk about how everyday citizens can participate in improving the systems that govern their livelihoods. Because awareness is the beginning, but collective understanding, that's where systems actually start to shift. Because understanding a system is the first step toward protecting yourself inside it. If you're watching this, I want you to participate and subscribe. In the comments, write one thing you felt the workplace guaranteed that you later realized worked differently. Your experience may help someone else understand sooner. Let me ask you something. Before today, did you believe workplace disputes were mainly about truth or about risk and liability? Comment, truth or risk? I want to see where people are starting from. If you've ever felt confused, pressured, or unprepared during a workplace issue, you're not alone. You were simply never taught the rules. Understanding the rules is how you change the game.